Okay, so we're going to move on to chapter 15, our chapter on soils. This will be our first lecture, of course, for this chapter. Textbook that we'll be covering with this lecture, 336 to 342. As always, make sure you follow up this lecture with the reading or vice versa. Okay? So when we talk about soil, so just textbook definition here, the uppermost layer of the Earth's crust that supports plants, animals, and microbes. All right. Now there are I shouldn't say countless, lots and lots of different classifications for soil based on lots of different things. Those factors that are contributing to all these different types of soil are, first of all, the parent material. So essentially, what type of rocks were weathered? Okay, then that contributes to the mineral content to the soil, and how heavily weathered they are is a function of time and climate, and also organisms play a key role in soil because one of the important parts of our soil is organic material, dead, decaying plants, animals, and so on. Bringing us back, if you recall, to things like the nitrogen and phosphorus cycle, right? Ringing bells for you. You guys love that, I remember. And then also, of course, topography. Really steep slopes don't generally have very much topsoil. Flat areas enable topsoil to build up over time. All right. So all these factors contribute to our different varieties of soil type. All right. So when we talk about soil types, we're really talking about what is the soil composed of. All right. And these percentages, you don't need to memorize these, all right? They're average. It really depends on the type of soil, okay? But good soil is going to be about 45% mineral particles. And again, those mineral particles are simply the weathered rocks from nearby that compose the small particles of the soil. Organic material, so we're talking dead or decaying leaves, etc., animals, dead remains of plants and animals, insects, fungus, bacteria, all that stuff contributes to organic material. And then water and air, right? And that is what fills our pore spaces. Okay? So 50% on average, soil is about 50% pore space. All right, we want a fair amount of pore space because that's good for the aeration of the soil. We want some air present. Now that helps organisms to survive, for one, but plants actually do like the soil to not be waterlogged all the time. Okay, so yesterday, actually, this is today's lab. Excuse me. Today's lab was designed to identify relationships between particle size, porosity, and permeability. All right, so porosity and permeability are going to be some key vocab terms for us this chapter. And so how does the soil particle size affect its relationship with water? All right, in other words, porosity and permeability play important roles in both soil air and soil water, and how well water flows through it, how well the soil holds on to water, etc. All right. So these are the general relationships that you guys came up with as particle size increases, porosity decreases. So you should have seen that our gravelly particles actually ended up with less pore space than the sand. Okay. Now, also, the second relationship is that as particle size increases, the soil becomes more permeable. So water is able to flow through it better. So, oftentimes you think the more porous the soil is, the better water is able to flow through it. It's actually not necessarily a true statement. It has to do with how connected those pore spaces are and how big those pore spaces are. Okay, so bigger particles generally tend to have better connected and larger pores, but not a higher percentage of pore space. Okay, so big particle sizes, water flows through quickly, has lower porosity. So big particles, high permeability, low porosity. Okay. So when we talk about soil texture, we're talking about the relative proportions of our different particle sizes. Now, generally when we're talking soil, we're not usually including gravel as soil specifically, but we do include clay, sand, and silt in our soil types. Right? So sand you guys are all familiar with. And within the world of sand, they've got coarse sand, very coarse, medium fine, and very fine, right? And it's all referring to just how big those particles actually are, all right, relative to other particle sizes. So sand would be our coarser particles, and so sand is going to have a moderate porosity, right? But really, really high permeability compared to things like silt and clay. Clay is going to have a really, really high porosity, but a really, really low permeability. So water is not able to flow through clay very well. Okay. AP test question guaranteed to be something about particle sizes, so it'll also be on my test. All right. So the soil texture affects soil properties. So coarse texture soil or sandy soil will not hold water well. It flows through really easily. And fine textured soil has poor drainage and low oxygen levels, but also has high nutrients, interestingly. The clay particles tend to be negatively charged, and that attracts our mineral ions. All right. So clay soil, lots of good mineral nutrients, really, really poor water properties when it comes to what plants like. Okay, sandy soils, poor nutrients, but they drain really well, but they also don't hold on to water really well. So really, our best soils for like agriculture, for example, tend to kind of have a happy medium built into them. All right, so if we look at loam, for example, loam is a type of soil that's kind of got a mixture of particle sizes. So you're going to have some clay in there, but you also have some sand. So if you mix clay and sand, you get the mineral particles, but the sand helps aid in the permeability of that soil. And probably going to have a fair amount of silt, which is that medium-sized particle as well. So loam is our great soil for agriculture. And we tend to find loam really commonly in flat areas like grasslands and floodplains. Okay? So this is like a kind of a three-tiered graph of sorts that shows like the breakdowns of different kind of types of soil. And again, this is by no means comprehensive. There's all kinds of classifications and types of soils. But notice that our loam right here has some sand, it's got some silt, and some clay. So it's a mixture of particle sizes. So it does get those mineral nutrients from the clay. But the sand and the silt help with its water properties. It doesn't drain super fast, right? So it doesn't leach out, but it does drain. And then it also holds on to some of that water so that the plants have it on drier days. Okay, that's why we say loam is probably one of our better types of soil for agriculture. All right, that's it for today. Quick lecture for you guys. Okay, so when you walk in tomorrow, we'll do a little discussion of different soil types and so on, and then we'll actually throw in another lab either Friday or Monday on some other soil tests we can do, like organic material and so on. All right?